Hello, everyone, and welcome inside the WOBM studios. I'm Vin Evanu from the WOBM newsroom here with Ocean County's newest prosecutor, Bradley Billhimer, in what's almost your 2-month anniversary in office, about a month and a half now.
Yeah.
So to start, what's the transition been like? I know I'm curious, spending, I guess, 2 decades as a criminal defense attorney. Now you're prosecuting the people that you were defending at one point.
Well, they're not the same
what has
people.
That been like? Oh, yeah, right.
Well, yeah, we're not prosecuting the same people, but the transition for me personally has gone smooth. This has been a process of me coming to the prosecutor's office that it didn't happen overnight. So it was something I was preparing for and winding down my practice. But what my experience has given me as a criminal defense attorney is the ability to know the people in the office. I kind of had a better idea of what I was coming into based on the work that I've done over the last 20 years. I practiced primarily in the area of criminal defense litigation, so I was well adjusted to basically and knew a lot of the assistant prosecutors and investigative staff, people that work there in the office, people that have dedicated their life to public service, and I'm actually honored to work with them and to see how hard they work. And, the perseverance, it's impressive. And the transition for me personally has been smooth. My wife and children are also experiencing the transition. And I'm hopeful that the people that work for me in the prosecutor's office have been happy with the transition. I've tried to do some more inclusive things within the office to make people feel comfortable with the transition. So,
you find it's any bit easier now that you're experiencing both sides of the courtroom, so to speak, that maybe you have a little more knowledge of what's going on through the mind of a criminal defense attorney or who they're representing, and then of course now being on the prosecutor's side with how to enforce the law in Ocean County, how to keep things safe?
Well, that's my primary objective for any prosecutor is to enforce the law. So it's not different. I do have an understanding, but as the prosecutor for the entire county, I don't get to spend a lot of time in the courtroom. I have assistant prosecutors. We have 46 assistant prosecutors who go to court every day and do a great job. Part of the job is administrative. I'd say you divide up 33% is administrative. Another third is prosecutorial, making decisions on cases. And then the other third, I like to focus on community outreach and getting involved with the local police departments and the local communities, which has been very important. It's part of one of the things I want to make sure that is accomplished at least in my 5-year term, right?
Hey, you mentioned the last 20 years spent as a criminal defense attorney right down the road from where your office is, from where our studios are in downtown Palms River here. So, Ocean County resident, I know you mentioned Silverton before, but you're now living in Berkeley Township.
I live in Berkeley Township, so I grew up in Silverton. I'd say my parents got divorced in 3rd or 4th grade, and we moved to Beechwood after that. So I've grown up all in Ocean County, educated in Palms River Public Schools, went to Ocean County College. My office, like you said, is a stone's throw from here. My prosecutor's office, where I work now, is a stone's throw from that. So I graduated from Palms River South. I was class president back in 1988. Now, you were a young buck back then.
I wasn't even born.
You weren't even born. Oh my God, I'm so old. But it gives me a tremendous amount of pride, and I said this, I think, a little bit when I got sworn in when the Attorney General was there, that from the front of the prosecutor's office, you can see the back of High School South. It just gives me a lot of pride that I'm from here, and I get to make an impact on the community here, and I've grown up here. I stressed upon my children the importance that we did stay here. We didn't move to another town, and we didn't start over. I didn't take a law job where I thought it'd be more lucrative. I stayed here and tried to help people in our community, so that's been very important to me. And then I taught at Ocean County College too for 12 years. I was an adjunct professor of criminal law, so I taught intro to criminal law and procedure. So I'm well versed in the 2C aspect of criminal prosecutions. But the administrative part, we go to a lot of meetings. I have a lot of meetings now. That's what we do a lot. That's where I spend most of my day, having meetings, making decisions, and
drinking a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I drink a fair amount of coffee. Yeah, I would say that's true. Yes.
So born and raised, well versed in what is going on around Ocean County. Did you see this as a dream job when you were first approached about maybe being appointed to the prosecutor, as somebody who does have that law background that you do?
At first, it was kind of an epiphany to me. At first, I thought, because you don't spend a lot of time when you're working every day defending clients and trying to do your best for people that are in very tough situations, you don't spend a lot of time thinking about how far you've come, right? So I was an associate in a firm. I went out on my own in 2010, opened my own law practice, and was pretty successful, but you don't stop to look back. You just keep kind of moving forward. So then when I realized 20 years in that, hey, I would be good for this job. I have the right background. I have the right temperament. I think the right disposition. I see it kind of as the pinnacle of my career, even though if I'm only here for 5 years, I'll have some time to do things after that. So I'll be a young man with young children, and I'm going to have to keep working. So it's not the end.
So they can get to college.
Yeah. I've taken this job in the it's a 5-year term. I was appointed October 9th of this year. So I've taken the job in the 5 years before my oldest daughter will start college. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
What has that transition been like for your wife and your two girls? With you now being the Ocean County Prosecutor, the top law enforcement officer in the county, kind of, with big shoes and a lot to handle now. So
I think they're happy with it. I think that it's been. I think they're I think at first, I think it all kind of hit them when I got sworn in the courthouse on the 9th, and then again on October 12th, we had a ceremonial one. I think that the splendor and the regalness of this whole process in a big courtroom, it's fancy, and they kind of looked at their dad and went, oh, this guy, and he's been doing something every day when he goes to work, and it all amounts to something. And that's part of the lessons you want to teach your children, is that, hard work pays off, and keeping your head down and doing the right thing as best you can every day makes a difference. So I think we're all adjusting to it. I know that my mother's particularly proud, so she's having a good time.
Always got to make mom proud.
she's having a good time with it.
So being the father of two girls in Ocean County, being somebody who's been born, raised, and lived in Ocean County for a while, you're no stranger to Ocean County's biggest problem, and that's the heroin and opioid epidemic. I've had conversations with other people, not just law enforcement or lawmakers, people that are affected by the addiction disease, the epidemic. I've seen it, somebody who's also going through the Toms River School District, and seen that addiction kind of go from one drug to another. Crystal meth, crack cocaine, marijuana, heroin, opioids, fentanyl. It seems like every few months there's something that's even more dangerous than fentanyl, morphine and all that. So what are some of your plans in trying to tackle this complex problem that's not going to go away in a few days or a few weeks or a few months, in maybe long-term, short-term goals that you have in mind on how to clean up the streets from drugs, get drug dealers off the streets, find those who are addicted to these drugs, the help that they need?
That's a long question, right? There's a lot to it. So taking the job, coming in, I was keenly aware that this had to be a major part of anything I wanted to do moving forward. Protecting children and protecting the safety of the community is one of the main charges of being the Ocean County Prosecutor. It's something I take very seriously. So the opioid epidemic is not just a problem in Ocean County, it's a problem throughout the country. And I have to focus on what I can do here in the county. So in the first 60 days that I've been the Ocean County Prosecutor, I've tried to put together a plan, a more collaborative approach to not just addressing the problem, but addressing it through education, treatment, and that's where I see the future of my plan going. So we're on pace right now to lose 200 people to overdose deaths in Ocean County alone by the end of this year, and that's from January 1 of 2018 to the end of this year. So the collateral damage that brings not only to the families of those people, but to the community is something that no one man is going to be able to stop. So the collaborative approach that I'm talking about has to do with the first week I met with the Monmouth County Prosecutor, the Monmouth County Sheriff. I brought Sheriff Mastronardi with me. We had a meeting up there to see what their approach was. I've talked to people in Atlantic County. I've met with the Board of Health. I've met with people from Preferred Behavioral Health, Ocean Mental Health, the New Jersey Reentry Program that Governor Greaves put together. I have a meeting scheduled with all the criminal judges in Ocean County. It unfortunately was rescheduled, but it's going to be rescheduled to right after the new year, I believe. And what we have to do is come up with a collaborative approach. And what I'd like to see is more education. And there's a concept that we're working with called resiliency training, which is really something that came about through the military and through the armed forces, specifically the Army. And that is teaching kids, children, adolescents, coping skills. The idea is you have to have the tools to make the right decisions. So the analogy would be, if you drop an egg on the sidewalk, it breaks, and if you drop a tennis ball, it'll bounce back. We want our kids to be tennis balls. We don't want them to be eggs. So that's an education process that I can't necessarily undertake alone. It's something that we have to have a collaborative approach. We need cooperation from the school systems, all the superintendents. I've met with them in Ocean County. We can't keep, the treatment. We have the Blue Heart program. We have treatment. We have tremendous cooperation amongst the treatment providers in Ocean County. But we have to start addressing the problem that gets you to the treatment. So the other analogy is, we're all playing in the dirty water, and at some point we have to try to shut off the faucet. So I think the only way we can shut off the faucet is if we start educating the kids about, their self-worth, their ability to make decisions. One of my most productive meetings I had, and I attended a training seminar with the Manchester Police Department. The chief there is Lisa Parker, and she put together a program called #NotEvenOnce.
Right.
And it's a 3-day training seminar. And I brought my first assistant, I brought my chief, and we sat there and were just kind of blown away at the level of sophistication of the program. And that's something that we're talking to Chief Parker about bringing countywide. And I think we're going to try to have a module for 7th and 8th grade, and then another module for high school so that we can get them twice. It's a 3 1-hour class, basically, that the Manchester Police, all of their own accord, have already done all the work. So it's just, and they're giving it away for free, and it's something I'd like to implement countywide. The Blue Heart, the other things that we do, once people are already addicted to drugs, they're all great programs, but we have to start doing something to educate the kids before this happens. That's, I'm not a politician, but I am a father, and these are all things that you just have to have a more collaborative approach. The Board of Health is going to be involved. The Ocean County Freeholders are going to be involved. Everybody's pledged their support. So it's a matter of formulating a plan and just getting it into action. That's one of the things working in the prosecutor's office that I've adjusted to is that, you can make a decision, but it doesn't necessarily all happen in one day. It
takes a little time.
Yeah, it takes a little time in county government to get things going, but everybody's heart is in the right place, and that's the most important thing. It's not just, let's get these guys, men and women, young ladies and men, once they're addicted, and get them treatment. That is an important component. Treatment is a very important component, but we have to get them before that happens. We have to start educating them. The Not Even Once program, and you brought up fentanyl, and that's the biggest problem we have right now, is that fentanyl is being laced into almost everything, not just heroin. It's being laced into cocaine. We found it in marijuana, and it's deadly. It's once you touch it, it's 10,000 times more potent than morphine, right, in the smallest molecule. So it can kill you in a heartbeat. So the Not Even Once idea is you're playing Russian roulette if you ever try this stuff, and that's it's an important message I think kids need to get, because it's not just playing around anymore. It's life and death. We recently, we had a double overdose in my tenure so far as Ocean prosecutor, and that's something that really hit me hard. You have 2 people die at once, and it's just been brutal. I ended up going to one of the wakes just to talk to the parents to see if there's anything we could do to help them. But, protection of the children and moving forward has got to be, and educating the public has got to be the main component to stopping this.
Have you had any conversations with the DEA? I spoke with Tim McMahon, I believe it was, a few months ago, they set up this special task force in the Monmouth Ocean County area in what is arguably the hardest hit areas of the state with this epidemic, in either working with them or maybe coming up with some sort of plan on how to address the epidemic, make the arrest, and just, work on operations, countywide.
Absolutely, we have. So we've been in contact with the DEA. We've been in contact with the state police. I'm actually, that's nice, isn't it?
Background noise.
It's background noise. I'm actually, when I leave here today, I'm going to meet the state police in Trenton to discuss ways that we can collaborate and get together. The DEA is now involved basically through a grant that's going to help us basically go after the drug dealers. It gives us more manpower on the streets, and that's what we need. We have a special operations group in the prosecutor's office that's very proactive in going after the drug dealers, and that's what we're looking to do. There's some mechanisms within the law that we're going to pursue to the fullest extent, which is strict liability for drug abuse deaths. So whenever we have an overdose, one of the first things that we're looking at is if we can trace back those stamps, trace back the bags to who sold them. And what it means by strict liability is that we were looking at going straight to state prison if we catch you selling drugs that lead to an overdose or a death in Ocean County. And I think it's very important from a law enforcement perspective to get that message out there, to let them know that if you're dealing drugs in Ocean County and cause a death, we're going to put you in state prison.
What about the whole switching over similarly to a 5-hour meeting yesterday at the State House on marijuana legalization, taking another step forward? There seems to be this continuous debate, that probably won't end even if it is passed, on whether it is a gateway drug and it does lead to heroin or something much worse, what it could be used for, the medical side of it, and then of course, all these different shops opening up and marijuana being more accessible, and terms being thrown around as blood money. I think Sheriff Mashinardi at the State House said that that it was about money, and that a couple canines would have to be let go. So what is your take on the whole making marijuana legal in New Jersey? And
it's not the same New Jersey that you and I grew up in, I guess.
No.
As a prosecutor, I took an oath to uphold the law, so I don't really have an opinion as to the validity or what are the goods and bad, the pros and cons. I am a father. I do have children, so I have some thoughts as a father. But as the prosecutor, my job is to enforce the law. So marijuana is made legal. My concerns moving forward have to do a lot with, as the prosecutor, is that the current bill, the way that it's written, doesn't account for operating under the influence, people that are driving under the influence. So that's something I'd like to see, but it's not really my place to I'm not a legislator, I'm a prosecutor. So my job is to enforce the law, and our staff will do that based on whatever the law is.
Do you see that as somewhat of a challenge for law enforcement across the board if weed is made legal and DUIs or other cases?
Yeah, that's what I'm speaking of in terms of operating under the influence. There's no right now the process, if you're operating under the influence of a narcotic or CDS, is they have to call in a drug recognition expert, which is a local policeman in one of the departments that has specific expertise. But once marijuana is legal, you're going to need more of those and perhaps a better qualitative test to prove somebody. There's no way right now to tell when somebody ingested marijuana if they get caught driving a car. So it's in their bloodstream, but it could be in there from 30 days ago. It could be in there from 25 days ago or 2 hours ago. We don't have any way of testing that. So that's a challenge for law enforcement. Marijuana has been a challenge for law enforcement. I see both sides of the issue in terms of the discrepancies in terms of conviction rates, but I think, again, the safest way out for me is to say that as a prosecutor, I will enforce the law to the best of my ability.
Going along with that and transitioning to the topic of another debate, bail reform, that I know has caused, I guess, you know, some strife, I guess, on the side of law enforcement about what it thinks. I know, speaking with Sheriff Golden a couple months ago at an event where Jim McGreevy was at with his drug reentry program, it's kind of like whoever goes in, it's, you know, with this bail reform, they can get right out, and there's not necessarily a rehab process for either those addicted to drugs or those dealing drugs, you know, the low-level offenders, those dealing, and then, of course, aside from the expense that it costs municipalities to, you know, at the courthouse. What is it? Is bail reform a challenge for law enforcement?
It's absolutely a challenge. It's it went into effect when it went into effect. I was defense attorney, so we adapted just as the prosecutor's office did, and we watched each other kind of learn. So from the law enforcement side of it, basically the way bail reform works is that there's a number of factors that the pretrial service section of the probation department of the court is going to look at and determine whether or not somebody's eligible for release. And the only people, the only defendants that are ineligible to be released are those that are charged with murder. So attempted murder on down, everybody's eligible for release based on the confluence of two different factors. So I know the judges have taken a lot of slack for letting people out, but that's currently the way the law is written. The idea behind bail reform was to make sure that people that didn't have access to money weren't sitting in jail, and that's the idea. But what it's led to, and what you were alluding to, is that people that need treatment are getting out in 3 or 4 days. They haven't sufficiently detoxed, and now they're back on the streets. So the idea is, you know, in the old days, you'd put a monetary bail on somebody that was charged with possession or possession with intent. Somebody that was a user would stay in jail. The judge would order some kind of services, and then that would start the rehabilitation process. Bail reform has taken that part of it away. So part of one of my meetings with Sean Golden and Chris Gramaccioni up in Monmouth County, the Monmouth County prosecutor, they're using all those available resources. So if somebody gets out on bail reform in 3 days or 4 days or 5 days, and they're released by a judge, they direct them right to the services. There's no guarantee they go to the services, but the services are available at the point of release. And that's something that I think we need to implement here in Ocean County, is to get people more services. The services are all there. We have a lot of people ready and willing to help. We just don't have a system right now where they go right to the services. So
another issue affecting schools, especially with all the mass shootings, not just across the country, some more recently, of course, a lot of the schools, I know Toms River was one of the most recent ones that had armed police officers inside the schools. Is another way law enforcement is trying to be proactive and stay ahead of, you know, any tips, keeping schools protected. I know there was a little brushback, I think, from the public on adding armed police officers, some concern there. But do you think that the right steps are being taken, or enough is being done, or what would you like to see done with schools and school safety and gun control?
School safety is another important, you know, part of my whole platform coming in, is protecting the safety of our children, and school safety is a major importance. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the times that we live in, that you have to have policemen in the schools, whether or not, I know Toms River, I'd applaud the Toms River Council, who just put aside some money to hire retired police officers that have to be, I think the criteria is 3 years out, and so they still have their firearm certification and they can carry. So I think that's a great idea, but it comes down to the money and putting the money aside to make sure that the kids are safe. You have to do something. Luckily, we haven't had any of those problems in Ocean County. We have a very aggressive plan that I reviewed as soon as I took office, just to make sure that we have maps of the schools. We know if officers from other departments come to the schools, they can access those maps. They have active shooter drills, which I know you didn't have when you were in school, and I didn't have them when I was in school.
No,
we had a fire drill. Yeah, we had a fire drill. So my kids are, you know, attending public schools, so I have some skin in the game as well, and I think we're doing a good job in Ocean County. The prosecutor's office oversees a lot of the school resource officers and we have a great relationship, and we keep those relationships active and making sure that we know what's going on in the schools. And that leads us back to the whole opioid thing, is making sure that we're all having a collaborative approach and making sure that we're talking to one another, we're in the schools, and we know what the kids are doing. So I think we're safe here.
Seems that drugs, of course, are the bigger issue. There's not necessarily a lot of as much gun violence in Ocean County specifically. There were some threats, I think, over the last couple of years. Notes being written on the bathroom wall, stuff being emailed in that was handled by various police departments. I believe Barnegat was one of them. Do you think that can this tie into the whole issue of school bullying, and maybe as a preventative measure of a student bringing a gun to class, like a Columbine situation?
Yeah, we certainly hope that doesn't happen here in Ocean County, but all of it's tied in together. When I talked about the resiliency training, that's one of the things that if you give kids the tools to make, good decisions, effective problem solving, impulse control, those kind of things. Those are kind of things we have to start working on now. But luckily we haven't had those problems. I don't know if you're aware, but on November 15th, we had an anti-bullying forum at the R.W.J. Barnabas Health Center. We got tremendous support. We brought in some people like Richard Sambora, and we brought in Gaten Matarazzo, who was really great to work with. But the theme of that, and we had some real life people that were involved in bullying situations. The theme of that is to basically give kids, you want to help build their character and not lend themselves to being easy prey to bullies. And the better we can help kids make better decisions in terms of just being resilient, be the tennis ball and not the egg, I think it all plays into each other.
What are some of the plans that you have for Ocean County, or some things that you'd like to work on, some programs or some relationships you'd like to build with the police chiefs of Ocean County, of course, Sheriff Mastronardi, in not saying that Ocean County is not a safe community. It is, and it's a great place to be during the summer.
The goal is to keep it safe, yes.
But to keep it safe, to make some improvements where needed, of course, address the drug epidemic and school safety. What are some things that you're looking to maybe implement or continue in keeping Ocean County safe?
It's a multifaceted approach that we have to have, and collaboration is the theme, because I've talked about it a bunch here. But we have to work together. There's tremendous resources that the county has, from the Office of the Attorney General all the way down. I've made it very important to have a relationship with the chiefs in Ocean County. We have 33 municipalities. I've gone to the Ocean County Chiefs meetings to forge a relationship with them. The local police departments don't get enough credit. They're on the front lines every day. They're the ones that respond to every call. So it's important for us to maintain those relationships, to forge them, to make them better. We're going to do a lot of things. Resiliency has been a big thing. Mental health, which we haven't really talked about, but it all plays into it. And it's giving kids the tools to make better decisions. We're working with everybody in the office. Megan's Law Unit is, we're giving them some resources to make sure we can protect our children, make sure that we're doing what the law requires. We want to do more community policing activities. We've worked with the local police departments. The Attorney General's office has implemented a 21 for 21, wants to basically to get involved in community outreach, make sure there's 21 counties in the state. We want to make sure that we run 4 programs a year, which I'm fully behind, and I support that. The anti-bullying event that we had was one of those ones that we're foraying into that area. And then we're just going to keep working to provide good relationships. Relationship takes work, and it's not just, it's like any other relationship. When the chiefs need something, I like to be there for them. Financially, manpower wise, we're doing a lot of things. We have a number of programs at the county level too. For my office, the early diversion program for veterans. We have a mental health component to the court system now. So we're trying to use all the resources that we have just to make the community safer.
Have you gotten a lot of feedback or some suggestions from the police chiefs, or in speaking with them, or things that they need some help with or additional funding for?
I have, yeah. And I've worked with Chief Little. I've worked with Chief Parker. I'm speaking with Chief Commander Michael Berkeley about some things we can do together. Every every town has specific needs, and that's the uniqueness that is Ocean County. And if there's anything the prosecutor's office can do to help them, we're certainly available to do it, as long as it's within our resources. And we have a vast amount of resources that we can implement throughout the county. So yeah, we're working with every police chief that reaches out to us, and we're reaching out to the ones that haven't. So.
Senator Singer, I was speaking to him just as you were being appointed, said basically made the same offer to you. He said he wants to work with you, form a relationship with you and the other two senators, Connors and Holzapfel, and saying, hey, you know, whatever you need, you know, funding this or that. How has that relationship so far formed with the three senators?
It's been great. I have to tell you, all three of them have been, even through the process of getting the job, and now that I have the job, they've all been great. All three of them are class acts. They're just, Bob Singer's an Ocean County institution. You know, he's just the legendary figure, and he was so kind to myself and my family. Just really helped me through the process. But he's been great. They've all been great. Holzapfel's been great, Senator Holzapfel, and Senator Connors has been just a just a guy I can call if I need to talk about something, or if he needs my help. They all know that the prosecutor's office is here to help all the citizens of the county. But they've all been great.
I want to close up with this, a little lighter side, getting to know you kind of thing.
Later.
I know it's been a little dark at times there. This
is tough stuff.
Yeah. I know you've done some work with the People's Pantry. And
I have,
Pat
yes.
Donahue.
She's a
great individual, does a lot of great work. How did you get involved with working with the People's Pantry?
I wonder how I did get involved. I attended a fundraiser, and I was introduced to Pat. It was one of those connections that you make. Her heart was in the right place. The People's Pantry was born out of the storm. You know, it wasn't. Pat didn't have some elaborate plan to open a food pantry. She opened a food pantry because the citizens down in Silverton, where I grew up until about third grade, needed a place to get food. So we just kind of hit it off. And then Peter Van Dyke, who's the chairman of the board there, asked me to be a member of the board, and I was only able to serve for 2 years. And I said to Pat, I had to resign so I could take the prosecutor's job. And said, I don't feel like I ever realized my full potential on the board, but I was happy to be involved. It's a great mission. Food insecurity in Ocean County is a real thing. It's not something that people take for granted. So Pat does a great job, and my family and I were there handing out turkeys on I guess that was last weekend, 2 weekends ago, for Thanksgiving, and we're proud to do it every year, and we're happy to help. I have to say this year we probably had more volunteers. Monsignor Donovan football team was there handing out turkeys with us.
Excellent.
They did a great job. It's always good to have some young guys to carry the bags to the car, so the old guys don't have to do it. Yeah. Yes.
I know. Just want to close with one more thing. What are some other things that you'd like the rest of Ocean County to know about Bradley Billhimer that get to know you?
It's not so much about me. It's about knowing that I'm going to be there at work every day. It's a 24/7 job. It's not something that I take lightly. We're out there, not just the prosecutor's office, but the sheriff's department. You have 33 local police departments, every one of which is charged with being on the front lines, responding to calls every day, and that all of us are going to work together in cooperation with the Attorney General's office to make Ocean County the safest county in the state. It's not about me. It's about a collaborative effort.
Prosecutor Billhimer, thank you for the time.
Nice to meet you, man.
That's Ocean County Prosecutor Bradley Billhimer. I'm Vin Ebony from the WOBM Newsroom, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. We got one question. Are you still there?
I think we're good.